Okay, it looks like we are back. Apologies. So we're here for reimagining immigrant community safety here in Oklahoma City. My name is Bridget. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Safe Commune program lead for Foundation for Liberating Minds. And today I am joined by some wonderful panelists. First, Dulce, if you could come back out from Dream Action Oklahoma. Uh,
Hello.
Hi, thanks so much for your patience with the technical difficulties. Um, so Dulce is an executive team member at Dream Action Oklahoma. I know you're also a parent in the community. Um, Excited, getting ready for Halloween. um,
Yes.
and whoop, sorry about that. Um, so just a little bit about Dream Action Oklahoma. So DAOK is a community organization that aims to empower our local immigrant community through advocacy, education, and to ensure justice for all immigrants. Thank you, Dulce, for being here. And we're excited to learn a little bit more about how DAOK has been doing that. Next, I'm going to bring out Nicole. Nicole is here representing the ACLU and also LULAC, the League of United Latin American Citizens. She's helped organize community walks in South OKC through LULAC and does work for legislation and community safety through the ACLU. And through those community walks, they go door to door, ask people what they need in the community, and also spread information about what is available. Next, we have Fernando. Fernando is here with the Community Response Network of Oklahoma City. CRN is a community defense project that provides rapid response trainings throughout the OKC Metro. They are working to build a base of people who are not being targeted by ICE to defend their neighbors from abductions and harassment at the hands of immigration enforcement. Additionally, Fernando posts regularly on his own page to warn neighbors about ICE activity, and he is a high school teacher in the community. Thank you so much for being here, Fernando.
Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, Miss Brenda. If you could come out. Brenda is an immigration attorney doing removal defense work through her law firm, Rivas y Asociados. She also helped to establish Dream Action Oklahoma and has been working to build safer communities here in the OKC Metro for years. Thank you all so much for being here. And with that, we're going to hop into our first question. So, as we've been thinking through what community safety looks like in the safe commune, I've been trying to map out kind of like who are the people coordinating different components of community safety. And I see the four of you doing this in our community. So it might sound simple, but I would really love for each of you to go through kind of what your typical day has looked like lately, because I imagine it has looked rapidly different day to day. But seeing like similar trends in your work. And I think I would love to start with Fernando in your experience as an organizer and your experience as a teacher, because I'd love to get kind of a picture of what that has looked like lately for you.
Yeah, so juggling a lot for sure. I think, especially in the Hispanic community, um, I serve a lot of families that come from Mexico. So a lot of my students have been in the U.S. for 3 or 4 years, and then I have a small group of students that I serve that are first generation or were brought here as children. And
Mm-hmm.
so in the Hispanic community, teachers should have all the answers for any question they may have about their life. And so me stepping into the work that I've been doing with the community and then being an educator, there has been a lot of pressure and expectation for me to have a bunch of answers, especially right now. And so, just making connections with other strong members um, from the community, kind of like the ones on our panel today, have really helped me find answers for these families. From just personal life, the immigration part is only one aspect of what our one of the barriers or challenges that our community
Mhm.
faces. There's a
Mhm.
there's a lot of other ones that they also are trying to work through at the same time as they trying to get through this moment.
Mhm.
So it's very busy, making a lot of connections. So many that I completely forget, who I've talked to last week. But it's juggling a lot. It's juggling a lot for sure.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Definitely a lot day to day. What has that looked like for you, Brenda, in your work? As I also imagine there's been like some fluctuation, but maybe like an example of what a slow day would look like and what a busy day would look like.
Yes, and thank you for having me. I think very much echo what Fernando has shared. There are a lot of questions about why is this happening? How is this happening? Definitely every day it's like trying to keep up with immigration policy.
Mm-hmm.
There's changes happening every day, like every hour of the day, it feels like. And
Yeah.
so as an attorney, I would say it's increased hearings. I do removal defense work. It could span from having one hearing to having sometimes six hearings in a day. And so, I definitely have the privilege of working at a law firm with other attorneys who can step in and cover hearings, and we can co-strategize for clients across the nation. But it's definitely busy. And I think that one thing that we don't, talk about enough, perhaps in all of our spaces, is that there are more cases than there are attorneys. And so I think that there's a level of dependency for sure on the legal field to sort of step up and have all of the answers and solutions. But in reality, and this is something that I focus on after work, right, the solutions are going to come from community as well. The solutions are going to come from all of us stepping up. And so after work, on the slower days when I don't have too many hearings of my own, I like to spend time with some of the folks on this call right now, right? Doing community organizing, trying to tackle the local policy changes that we're seeing that impact, for example, students,
Mm-hmm.
that parents, enforcement has increased in our local neighborhoods, and we're starting to see more trends with ICE showing up and asking for documentation, for example. And so trying to inform as many people as possible about their rights, about creating a safety plan. That's sort of what day to day looks like right now in relation to immigrant safety for me.
Mm-hmm. So much. I also, if I could do a quick follow up, because I mean, look, largely because Brenda and I have known each other the longest, and I remember meeting you. I think were you still in college, or were you even like, yeah, you were like doing an internship when we were first talking, and like you already had this plan to go to law school, and you already knew that you wanted to do immigration law. So if you can like speak a little bit to like what that build has looked like in these like last few years for you, especially any advice you might have for younger people now who are like wanting to go to into immigration law, for the purpose of protecting their community.
Yes. And I do remember meeting up with you, Bridget, at like local coffee shops in Norman, talking about the work that I was doing then,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is very different than the work that I am focusing on right now, but still in the same avenue of community response. I was doing civic engagement work back then, so
Mm-hmm.
getting people registered to vote, getting the Latina community to show up at the polls, and trying to organize on campus,
Mhm.
which, yes, 100% stems from my personal experience as a child of immigrant parents, right? And so I felt very driven, very called to do this work, because a lot of the time the responsibility of, like, read this document for me, what does this mean, or like navigating higher education was really up to me, right? As the eldest, as the child who has the solutions,
Mhm.
um, in a foreign country where we don't speak the same language, and
Mhm.
then there are plenty of younger cousins that look up to me now, which
Mhm.
is it's a privilege in and of itself to say that I even had these opportunities. And so I'm very humbled, and also reminded every day that I have a lot of responsibility on my shoulders that I've signed up for. And
Mhm.
so I think going from undergraduate to law school, I if anybody wants to do law school, if anybody wants to become an attorney, I am always happy to talk about that. I'm always happy to have some cafecito and sit down and chat about it. Happy to encourage more Latine children of immigrants, immigrant students to come and chat about law school and the challenges that I faced, but also the resources that are available to students. I think there are lots of resources still, even now, when we feel very hopeless. There is a community, a network of people who have helped me get to where I'm at today that I would be more than happy to share with anybody who's interested. I did take some time off after undergrad. I took a year off to focus heavily on community organizing. I was working very deeply with Dream Action Oklahoma then, in a different capacity, of course, than I am today. But I think if there is one thing that I could share with young people who want to go into law school and specifically do immigrant rights work is we need you. We need you. Let your passion drive you. Like, let that be your motivation every day. And I definitely didn't expect when I started law school for my first year as an attorney to be under a Trump administration where we're seeing a lot of policy changes. But I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, I would be doing removal defense regardless of who's in office, and I wouldn't trade what I do for anything, because that's where we're needed and that's where I want to be. And so, yes, I hope that answered your question, Bridget.
Yeah. No, it's very helpful to just kind of see like what your process has been like, and because I think overwhelmingly what I hear whenever I'm talking to people is like we really just need more people. We need more people mobilizing. We need more people practicing law. We need more people following legislation, and that takes organizing in a like intentional way. Like different people are going to have different roles. Different people's brains work differently. I'm so grateful that there are people like you, Brenda, going to law school. That's not something for me. I personally don't see that in my future. But like I really love connecting people. And I would love to then hear about like what your work has looked like, Nicole, with particularly like obviously with the ACLU, but with LULAC as well, of like working to connect this community piece that I see in the community walks and this legislation piece that is like can often have a higher barrier to entry, and like the translation between the two can be difficult at times. So just yeah, I'd love to hear what a usual day looks like for you and any insights on like what connecting that work will look like.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me today. It's such an honor to be around amazing people. Like, these are like, I admire many of these people here. And I look up to you, Brenda, so much. And I'm going to have the cafecito with you later. So, yeah, honestly, lately, ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, one of the oldest organizations that fights for civil rights in the United States, LULAC, League of United Latin American Citizens, is going to be 90 years that LULAC also fights for the Hispanic or Latino, Latino, community in the United States as well for their civil rights. So very interconnected. So it is. I'm privileged that I get to work with both of them, but it can be also very draining, especially in a time when, like Brenda and Dulce mentioned, and Fernando, uh, that it feels that every day there is something new. I think that right now my regular day, I start by going to a gym or going to boxing or going to yoga. I need to work out because that really helps my mind to have that clear mind and keep going. That's something that we really need to talk about, is our mental health and how we're like dealing with that. So for me, working out is being a huge deal. So that's how I start my day. Then I come to my apartment and I put the news on the TV because I decided that I want to start seeing the news on the TV and not on social media. I have found that a little bit better, like less overwhelming, and I can see, like, more accurate facts of what's happening around the country and around our city. I make my tea because I love to make tea. I do chamomile tea, chamomile mint, lavender chamomile, and then I go to the office. Sometimes I have a lot of meetings. A week can look like meetings, phone calls, coalitions, meetings, conversations, a lot of text messaging. Sometimes I find myself like organizing through my phone, and I just like texting these 20 people. Hey, can you meet this? Can you meet tomorrow? Can you meet today? What are we gonna do about this? Are you doing something about this? Always trying to, like, connect with people, just like Fernanda mentioned. I think that something that our executive director in the ACLU says all the time is that our partners are our best allies right now, and we need to rely and just connect and work with our partners, because we cannot do this work alone. We just can't. It has to be about unity. We need to come together and then just work, all of us, towards the same cause.
Mm-hmm.
um, so yeah, a lot of events also, like I had back-to-back event these last 2 weeks on the weekends. My Sunday was yesterday, and the holiday as well. So just different events, like, we were in this parade, and then we were in the Know Your Rights event, and then we were tabling, providing resources, talking to people, talking to community. Just a lot of events like that, coalition meetings as well. So definitely very active. And like I said, just always trying to find those little spaces during the day. Like at the end of my day, I always have to go for a walk with my dog. And I sometimes I can spend 45 minutes, 30 minutes just walking with him, and then just take my mind out of everything. That's how I've been dealing with everything, because definitely can be very stressful. Some things, as a person that I am a US citizen, I am very blessed that I'm a US citizen, but I came here when I was 17. The whole language barrier, resources, that was an issue for me too. So education, I'm so grateful that I had the chance to have education here in this country. So when that happened with the in-state tuition kids, that really touched to my heart, because it's a personal issue for me. And just things like that, sometimes things are just going to happen that are just closest to your heart, and it's going to hit you stronger. So some of those things, that's why you have to take care of your mind, and use that rage or passion to just keep the work going.
Mm-hmm.
And to your second question, with the ACLU, I'm the organizing manager. Cindy, she is the policy director, so she's the one who always goes to the Capitol and lobbies. But one of the things that I help Cindy in her work is just, try to get people to get civic engaged. One of the things that I've been focused a lot since I started with the ACLU is just trying to expand our audience, because it can be only just like the same circle, the same 50, 20 people that you always see at the same events.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that in every community is just the same circle of people, and we need to bring those new voices, we need to bring those new advocates, we need to bring those new ideas, that innovation. So definitely, like, that's why I've been trying to focus a lot. Last year This year we had the advocacy at the Capitol, and like around 100 people show up, and it was very diverse. So that's kind of like what I want, right? It's just like trying to empower these people through education, that educational piece on how can you advocate to your legislator, how can you do it effectively, and how can you use your voice and empower your community. So that's one of the things that I've been doing a lot with the ACLU. Then with LULAC, one of the, like you mentioned, one of the things that I've been focused is the community walks. So this is an initiative that I kind of copy from Foundation for Liberating Minds. I
Mhm.
remember that I attended to one of a couple of in the East Side with Tevin and Aurelius, which I admire profoundly. They're amazing.
Mhm.
And I was just like knocking. I personally just love knocking doors. I love, for me spending a Sunday knocking doors is just like, I genuinely enjoy it. So I was just talking to people, and I come from a political background. So like I was knocking a lot of doors on behalf of candidates, and I
Mhm.
just started noticing the difference, and I was like, wait, this feels more genuine, this feels more real. Why are we not doing this in other communities?
Mhm.
So then I had a meeting with Devin and Andy from Let's Fix This, and I was like, how can we bring these to a South Side or to Hispanic neighborhoods, right? Because that's something that we need to talk, is not only the South Side has Hispanics, like we are everywhere.
Mhm.
So we start working on that. Our main vision and mission with this community walks is just to increase the civic participation and civic engagement of the Latino community. We need to get our people to go vote. We need them to register to vote. And sometimes at the doors, one of the main issues that I see and that I hear is that they don't know how to do it. They I'm like, oh, can I be registered to vote, or how can I register to vote? It's always to help them to navigate that process. and
Mhm.
and also, like, something that I have noticed a lot is that when it comes to immigrants that they're US citizens now, they're still very focused on their politics in their home countries. And something that I remind them is like, well, your kids go to school here, you pay taxes here, all of the laws and policies that these people are doing is affecting you and your family, so you have to participate in our democracy, and it's your civic duty, right? So just, a lot of educational piece, and then just connect it to them in a personal level, because when they see someone who speaks Spanish and understand their culture just coming to their door, just to provide a know your rights cards, or
Mhm.
just like, hey, there is some legal people, like legal resources that you can contact in case if you need it, or some know your rights cards, or we also have like flyers with the LCDA, and they provide programs for schools and scholarships. So just those little things that you just don't know, because
Mhm.
many in our community they work 2-3 jobs, and they just don't have time for that.
Yeah.
So I see the value a lot on these community walks. It is hard, it is hard work, but we've been doing it since June. We're gonna have one in November. We just did two in October because of the bond. So we partnered with Joe Beth Hammond and James Cooper, just to increase the civic participation at the municipal level, because there's also like a huge issue. Our people just, maybe they come to vote for federal elections, but they forget that our strongest impact is in municipal elections and local elections. So that's a little bit our second question. I don't know if
Mhm. Yeah.
question.
Yeah. Yeah. You're doing a lot. You're wearing a lot of different hats from day to day. So
Very busy life lately.
yeah, yeah, networking on all the things and taking good care of yourself, which is very important. Um, and let's go to Dulce. Would love to hear about what your usual day has looked like with the AOK, and also as a parent, navigating
Mhm.
everything that's been happening.
Yes, thank you. No, definitely echo the organizing work. And we knew that we have been preparing for this moment. That's something that I will say as organizer, we have been preparing for what was going to come after
Mhm.
2024. We had done our political assessment, and we knew this was going to be the most likely scenario. So I'm also thankful and glad that we were able to prepare to rest in the period after elections, and then to strategize, and then to be able to meet the moment in our community. So yeah, we wear many hats. We are organizers, but as you mentioned, we're parents, so also taking care of ourselves and our little ones, and our parents, being people that are directly impacted, right,
Mhm.
by everything that is going on. It does hit different, right, at home, in our communities, seeing people that you know, that you care about your neighbors getting impacted, it is really tough. So I also appreciate Nicole for mentioning being able to take care of ourselves, because we cannot pour from an empty cup. So it's sustainability of the movement, being able to take care of ourselves. And yeah, I think as a parent, it is like my duty to bring knowledge to my kids and awareness of everything that is happening. We know that in schools they're not talking about things the way that they should be talking about, and banning books and banning all of this information. So how do I recreate those spaces of learning at home when it's not happening at school? So that is my hat as a parent, right? And then definitely the days are very intense, especially during this administration. The weeks, the days look very different. It depends on what the community needs, and although we do respond to a lot of last minute things, because we know that every day there is something new with this administration, this time more frequently than it was in the past, right? But we do plan, we have organizational programs that we keep weekly, and we try to sustain. So those are the things that we already know they're moving, and then there is the things that we have to respond, right? And how I show up for Dream Action Oklahoma on the daily, I think for me it's really important to stay up to date on information, and how enforcement is operating in the national level, how they're implementing new tactics, being able to recognize new trends, and how this shows up in Oklahoma, right? Why is it important for me to know is that that's the way that I'm able to gather all the information, develop new tools, and develop information that is going to be crucial for community to be able to fight back. We know we have been doing a lot of know your rights, and we have been for a while, and we've seen people using this tool to be able to question ICE agents, to be able to recognize these agencies. They don't open the door no more. So we know that they're also learning that we know not to open the doors. So you have seen probably new tactics of interfering with people outside of their homes, outside of their or jobs. So now, how do we train people to know that what their rights are, regardless if they're in a public space or not? And we also know, right, that people's rights are being violated, right? The and I think it's been a work of mine to remind people that this it doesn't matter, right? We're still not going to give them the power to violate our rights. People need to remember their rights. And so it's been a something that I've been working on, reminding people that even if the agents are not honoring your rights, somebody that is an ally is able to record. This all can be used for somebody's case, right? And so developing tools, working with the digital team to bring out information, doing training, showing up to local businesses to remind their employees and the owners on what their rights are as an owner and what they can do to support community, and also what is your right as an employee, right? So yeah, doing a little bit of that, also being part of coalitions locally and nationally, because I will also recognize that a lot of the learnings that I do is from other organizers across the country who are already seeing trends that we might not be seeing in Oklahoma. But we know Oklahoma likes to mimic a lot of the Florida policy, Texas policy. So we are in conversations. That way we can prepare. If it's happening in Florida, it's most likely going to happen in Oklahoma. So also thankful to, and the privilege to be able to be in those spaces, to learn from them, and also to provide more information and tools to our community. So that's a little bit of what our my daily, weekly. Yeah, so it varies for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I do want to follow up too and ask, like, if you could talk a little bit more about like how you've been having these conversations with your kids, because I think that's also like a, it's an ongoing struggle with anything in society, but especially like surrounding safety and also wanting them to like, still have fun and be kids.
Yeah.
To balance.
Yeah, for sure. I do follow a lot of therapists that center on, as Latino or Hispanic people, the way that we grew up, I'm trying to break cycles. So I allow my kids to always be open to ask me questions. And I've been an organizer for quite a while. So they've been in organizing spaces since they were babies. So they're little organizers. So I feel like they have a deep understanding on the moment. I do think the hardest has been when they have heard from their classmates that
Mhm.
they're being impacted or they had a loved one, and them not knowing how to address it with them. So providing like talking points that they can provide for their friends, or even just like telling them you need to connect them with this organization. So literally organizing their
Yeah.
classmates, and they're little, but we underestimate children so much. They're able to create their own circles and organize. So I just, open up to questions every day when they come home. I want to know how their day was. I want to know what was talking in school, like politically, after certain days that I will mention here, like, hey, how did your school handle this?
Yeah.
And then we are like, how do you feel about what they said? And then they tell me, and then we address it. And they're also surrounded by a lot of community buddies. So a lot of it's not on my, it hasn't been on my own. The growth of my kids is also being held by community members. So also really thankful for that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you all so much. It's been really great so far. I think to round out this question, I'd like to bounce back to Fernando. If you could speak a little bit more about like how your high school students have been handling this and what navigating, because obviously like children are going to have different needs at different ages, and I feel like personally I've seen more about younger children being impacted by these conversations, but not necessarily a ton of conversations about teens. Um, and yeah, so I'd love to hear like sort of how your students are doing, and if there are resources you'd like to see like more developed for kids this age.
Yeah, I work with high school kids, and so I think at that age they choose to ignore a lot of things that they can't control. And so we'll have conversations about it. We'll talk about things. They'll bring things because a lot of them, which is a little uncomfortable for me, a lot of their parents follow me on social media, so see the work that I do, see what I post, and so they'll hey, we saw your live last night while we were eating dinner, and I'm like, okay, that's pretty awkward. But they try to ignore part of it, and I'm not gonna push it on them. Just because I'm not a history teacher, I'm an English teacher, so I'll let the history teachers handle that. But when they want to have conversations, we'll definitely have open conversations about what's going on. Um, I think, and I told them about 2 weeks ago, I was like, hey, I was a high school student in this very same classroom, before. I attended US Grant, so I know how you guys feel, I know how you guys are thinking, and I know how you guys are deciding not to ignore this reality, but there's going to have to come a time where you're going to have to step in and do something for your community and for your people. And so, I mean, I don't want to put any pressure on them or, have them carry any kind of weight. But just say, hey, there's going to come a time where you are going to have to step up as a leader in the community. And then just again, just have space. And sometimes I just kind of step back and let them have their own conversations and just listen to them, uh,
Mm-hmm.
creating that safe space to have these conversations. Some kids are more engaged and more open about what they feel and what they see and how can this impact their family, and others are more reserved. Again, some choose to ignore, which I guess as teens they have that privilege to do so, and so I want to always respect that. But it is we do have conversations often of what they see and what they hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, looking at like the conversations that all of you are having in your day to day, is there like one thing or like a few things that you really wish everyone knew, particularly people who are facing discrimination from immigration enforcement? um, and people who are wanting to protect people who are currently facing discrimination. Um, and let's start with Nicole.
I had a feeling you were gonna call me first, and I wanted you to call me second because I was like, I want to hear what my colleagues have to say for that. But thinking about this question, uh, just the first part, what do I want personally for the immigrant community to like know right now? In a more mm, heartfelt level, I want them to know that there are people fighting for them. I want them to know that they're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to know that we see them, we hear them, we share the struggle. And I think that many of us are using the privilege that we have to bring a voice and visibility to everything that is happening.
Mm-hmm.
So, just solidarity. Like, there are people there that are being creative in many, many ways to
Mm-hmm.
do so many things. It can be grassroots level, it can be legal stances, it can be legislative. But there are people who are thinking about how to help our community.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in a more educational level, I really want all of my immigrant community to know what their rights are, and to remember that regardless of immigration status, they do have rights. Don't let this administration or the haters tell you that you don't matter, that you don't have any rights here because you're an illegal alien. That's like, just remember that even that you're undocumented, that doesn't mean that you're not a human being, and every human being have rights. So just remember you have rights. Learn to know what your rights are. Even that we're seeing that this administration is not respecting law and order and the rule of law, uh, we can still use our rights, and that later can help maybe the case, or at least for you to have better interaction, or I don't know. It's just like it can help you in any way, but it can help you at least to know how to navigate those situations.
Mm-hmm.
um so yeah, those, something else maybe to add is, for the people that they're not immigrants but they want to become a good ally to
Mm-hmm.
immigrant community. I always say this everywhere I go, is use your privilege. If
Mm-hmm.
you are, you know, an immigrant, a Latino, but you have your U.S. citizenship, use your privilege, use your voice. I hate to see when a Latino go against another Latino. We're all came here with the same dreams, with the same goals, just to have a better life, better opportunities, and provide for our families, and have a better future. So we need to have solidarity within our own community.
Mm-hmm.
They want us to be afraid, and we cannot be afraid. We have to speak up. We have to use our voices. Even if it's uncontrolled, we need to have those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to use our voices. And for allies that are outside of our Hispanic communities, I see a lot of good white people like showing up for our people. And it feels good, like this Sunday in our community walk. We partner with Baptist Church New Life in Ward 2, which is like by Britain, and it's predominant a black community. And many of them show up for a Latino community. They're like, how can we help? Like, how can, like, we want to knock these doors, but we just don't understand Spanish. So we partner a person who speaks Spanish and an African American who doesn't speak Spanish, and we send them out to the doors. And they talk, they met, they share experiences, struggles. So it's just show up into those spaces. It can feel uncontrolled, it can be a little bit like out of your way, but for our allies that have a higher level of privilege, is not enough by only sharing a post or showing up in a rally. You have to take, or showing up in a parade, you have to take the extra step. So be in those spaces with our community, learn about our community, because it's through those conversations that we're going to break those misconceptions that this administration is having. We're criminals, we're blah 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 blah, etc. And when you meet someone, I cannot tell you how many people I talk to, and many of them Republicans, and then they're like, well, I trust that Trump was just only going to deport criminals, but my neighbor, he's a hardworking person and he's getting deported. So is we need to like destroy that narrative. um
Mhm.
and again, it's, yeah, just that's kind of like what
Mhm. Mhm. Dulce, what about you? What's something that you wish you could let everyone?
Everyone know. Yeah, I could go on for days. But for sure, I do echo on expanding um, the group of people that we talk to. I know it's hard, um, but that's how we had a lot of people misinformed and disinformed, right? Because we didn't take the time to talk to the people. And so when I think about like what do I wish for everybody to understand and to know, um, it's for people to take time to assimilate and understand what is happening right now. And
Mhm.
it's something that everybody, regardless they're immigrants or not, should be working on undoing, right? Because just the speed that everything is happening, uh, the immigrant attacks are a racial issue and an economic issue. And I don't think people understand the impact that it's going to have in the long run and how it's going to affect everyone and our future generations, right? Black and brown and indigenous people are being targeted specifically, and a lot of it has to do with profit. And so if I want somebody, like I want people to spend time reading on how this is a profitable thing that is happening. Because if we are able to understand that and how people are banking out of the suffering of our communities, I think they would immediately have a different concept of migration and everything. In
Mhm.
Oklahoma, we're seeing the incarcerating rate grow and grow and grow. And not only do we see it growing here, but Oklahoma has the largest growing of incarceration in the world. So we incarcerate more people than anywhere else in the world. And so I know that some of you have seen the formerly closed private prisons and facilities are reopening, private prisons that are core civic. These are for-profit facilities, right? So there is no coincidence, as we're seeing the number of deportable people, right? The list is growing. They're ending programs like protection for people like TPS. They're criminalizing the asylum process, which we hear a lot about, like people need to do the legal way, the right way. Well, hello.
Yeah.
Asylum is the
Mhm.
which I have thought about the right way to do. People are doing it through the process and through the law, yet they're still criminalizing. They're still stopping people. They're still in the course while people are doing their check-ins. They're being detained and deported, right? So there is no coincidence that this list of people that are being impacted is growing, revoking student visas, work visas, and we know that the DACA program is failing to protect people from deportation, which it was meant to do that, protect people from deportation. Yet we have about 15 documented people in detention as we speak, right? So I want people to understand that this is not about like people coming here because I think something that we did in the trainings of that we have for our EJ, something that we learned, the fastest growing immigrant population is actually European countries, right? So it looks very different for a person of color to migrate than for a person from Europe to migrate here. It's all about private facilities, it's all about profit. So if we all take time, and I want that to be homework, and look into facilities of profit for each person, for each bed, each person that is sent into a detention facility. And then, not only that, inside of detention, they're forced to produce labor for pennies a day,
Mhm.
right? So, all of this is for profit of the suffering of our community members, our immigrant communities.
Mhm.
And so, I want people to care for people. regardless of their immigration journey, to care about one another. Because right now we're seeing attacks on immigrant communities, but as history repeats itself, because it's not the first time, they will for sure expand to other communities. And it's time to drive away, like you mentioned, Nicole. It's time to drive away as community members. And I think that's something that I've been struggling seeing other people that are impacted, because if you're an immigrant, regardless of how you came here, you're impacted by this. And I understand people are trying to separate from the issue by saying, but I'm the good immigrant, I'm actually a student and I deserve all of this. No, this impacts everybody. So I think it's time for us to drive away from that narrative, and not try to separate ourselves from how it's impacting other people, because this is going to impact everyone. Um, and I know, like I said, I can talk about this a lot. But that's why you should join our EJ sessions, because we are tackling a lot of that conversations.
Mhm. Yeah. Ooh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Brenda, what is something that you wish everyone knew?
Yes. And I will say Dulce and Nicole kind of took the words out of my mouth, out of my thoughts. And I echo a lot of what has been shared already. I think if I can leave people with anything today, it's just the understanding that you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
We are fighting back. I mean, this group of individuals, as well as like hundreds, if not thousands, of other people across the globe, are advocating against what we're seeing today, which are attacks on our communities. I think that I firmly have believed that those closest to the problem are going to be closest to the solutions, always. And that is why I firmly believe that those directly impacted, at least in the social justice and narrative building side of things, are people or community who should be leading in that work. But I think that this moment calls for more. I think that moment calls for allies. This moment calls for people who have become complacent in the systems that we exist in to step into that uncomfortable conversation, to step into that discomfort that we feel in our stomachs, because I know that I feel it daily. And I just encourage everyone to seek reliable education sources that you can learn from, that are digestible. I highly also encourage taking social media breaks. I know this is something that I've talked about with my family, my tias who love TikTok and Facebook. Like, I know that that's where all of our great advocates are sharing information, and I know that that's where you're getting a lot of the news flash. But for our sanity and for our well-being, it's important to also remind ourselves that we're human, that we are existing outside of these attacks, that sometimes that urgency, right, isn't the end of our world, right? And we can always come back to it. We can always come back to it, and we can always show up in different ways. But I do know that that anxiety that we're building internally, that is mentally impacting us and will have generational impacts. And so, I strongly encourage others to join. It's not just going to be the one, two, three, four of us that are going to be able to make that change happen. And then I also want to echo what Dulce has shared. Like, what we are seeing today is history repeating itself. Like, we've seen this before with Native communities, we've seen this before with Black communities. Like, this is not something new, it's just a different community that is being impacted in a new way. I mean, we've seen this with Chinese folks a long time ago, right? And so I encourage people to learn from our history in this country and the violence that it has also perpetrated outside of the United States, and then remain hopeful. And I know that that's a really, really, really hard ask right now. Um,
Yeah.
but if there's one thing that is going to die last, it's our hope, right? It's our resilience as a community. And I think that in these moments, I want people to know that you're as strong as your circle. And so we need to be having conversations with our families. We need to be having conversations with our neighbors, with our coworkers about our safety plans, right? Because as an attorney, I would love to sit here and tell you that if you hire us, you're going to have 100% guarantee. That is not the reality that we're living in. And I would be wary of any immigration practitioner that promises you that you are going to win 100% in the courts, because that's just not the reality. That's not what we're facing in immigration court. And so I want people to be mindful that if you're going to be seeking legal advice, it needs to be from an immigration attorney. It needs to be from a licensed professional. It needs to be from a trusted source. Because if you are watching someone on Facebook Live who is not an attorney share information, it's not going to apply to your case most likely. You need an in-depth, right, consultation. You need to sit down and create a plan with your family and a trusted immigration attorney. Another thing that I'm seeing arise and I think I want to bring light to is notario fraud. There are a lot of people in our communities who notarios or not, right, are sharing immigration information that they inform you is the truth and it's valid and they know what's right and they know what's wrong and this is how it's actually happening. It doesn't matter if they've been doing immigration work for years. It doesn't matter, right? In the end of the day, the only entity or people who are going to be able to assess your case for relief is going to be an immigration attorney. And you're entitled to second opinions. You're entitled to go to other attorneys, right? The attorney you visited created a plan for you that just doesn't work for you, or maybe it's just a little expensive or too expensive. You are free to go to another attorney, right? And so I just want to really emphasize that because I've also seen the way that notario fraud has impacted our community. Most recently, a lot of folks who were misinformed and given legal advice by non-legal professionals have been impacted and are easy targets in these moments because your information's already submitted to immigration, right? And so once they have this information, it's easier for immigration and customs enforcement to come find you. And unfortunately, a lot of the things that we're seeing is sometimes it's too far along, like you're too far in the process. And so anyway, that's my short spill on top of echoing what Nicole and Dulce have already shared. I think it's wonderful, right? Stay informed. I know dissociation is easier. I partake in that myself, but I promise you that's not going to be our long-term solution, right? So you got to keep at it together.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, thank you, Brenda. And I want to iterate again, like, I'm trying to like break it down into like smaller pieces with these questions, but like I really feel how emotionally intense every single day is for you all with this work. And I also see a tendency in community work and nonprofit work at this point in our country's history where there's a tension between solidarity and charity. And like really, really thinking about, so like I'm 33. In my 20s, I was very much working in a charity model. In terms of the amount of free labor that I provided without any expectation for like anything back and leading to like really, really deep burnout. And as far as the work that I was doing was, I was operating in more of a savior capacity. I was not operating as a co-conspirator or like someone who's like really showing up to learn and also like understands that my liberation is also part of it. So I want to just for a moment go into like what you were talking about, Dulce, about who is benefiting off of this. Because anytime we are seeing big shifts like this, there's going to be like a big money player who is benefiting off of this. And as we're seeing this big increase in incarceration via ICE kidnappings, we're also seeing a big increase in prison labor. I was a grocery worker for almost a decade and did labor organizing. And as you see this shift to like, I mean, Walmart's using prison labor, Target's using prison labor, Trader Joe's uses some prison labor, Whole Foods uses prison labor, and all of these things are hidden. So it's also not just, you know, if you are like one, you are being lied to about like what, like how your food is being produced. But also, it is worse for all of us as workers when one group of workers can be exploited in a particular way. It is like all white working people are going to have worse working conditions if we are not thinking about and like working to build safe working conditions for everyone. Um, and the role of immigrants in that has always been, um, and we've seen that like my family being Irish and Italian, like when they first came here, um, there was a lot of distrust of Catholics in general, like of Catholic immigrants, and excluding Catholics from a lot of unions, excluding Catholics from even like the KKK would target Catholics. Whereas now I see more white Catholics going to Trump rallies or like things that are connected to this white supremacist way of thinking, when their own ancestors would not have been accepted by this group of people. So also thinking about like our individual connections and identities of like how we're showing up as neighbors, um, how we're showing up as just like worker to worker, community member to community member, and thinking too, because I want to circle back to Fernando, like what you would wish like people would know, everyone would know, because I also see, you know, um, as I'm like thinking about how I can like you know, I am a you know, everyday person just like scrolling on my phone and seeing awful video after awful video, and I'm like, I'm gonna be ready when it comes to me, and then I'll like see a story about the Oklahoma Highway Patrol picking up hundreds of people in 3 days, and I was like, where? I didn't even know what to look for. I didn't even know that they were out. So like, what is something that you wish people would know for rapid community response? And also just, you know, if there's anything else that you would like people to know as in the other positions that you hold, like in your day to day.
Yeah, and I think first and foremost for our undocumented community, you know, as one who has experienced, you know, a close family member of mine, you know, has been detained and soon will be deported. I think first and foremost is that there is a life outside of the U.S. for us. You know, my family in particular, we've been here for 30 years. We're still undocumented. You know, I'm a DACA recipient, and you know, my older sibling, he was had no protection, and so he was picked up and will soon be deported. But you know, just going through that process with him and my family is that, you know, there is a life for us outside of this country, and unfortunately it ended the way that it ended and under the circumstances that it did. But with what we've learned and what we've gained while we were here, you know, we can make a life. And so even if you know, for those people who are being deported that no longer have the protection, that, you know, have been here for 2 or 3 years, you know, they've still have gained some knowledge and tools that they can go back and apply. And so again, I hate how it's happening, you know, and we're going to continue to fight against it because it dehumanizes us. But you know, we are still worthy of being called a human. We still deserve our rights. We still deserve to be treated like the human beings that we are. And so, you know, that's a big one. And you know, what I want people to know, I think first and foremost is, you know, people, when you get into spaces, not to be afraid to speak up or speak out. Um, you know, somebody mentioned, I believe, I don't know if it was Nicole or Dulce, you know, sharing a social media post is great, but also when you're in spaces with people who may have different opinions and speaking out, people need to hear it. People need to see someone that looks like them speaking against what is going on and what is happening to our undocumented community. Like Dulce had said, looking into the history, what we're seeing is we're seeing that they're pulling over um, work vans here in the city that are, have 3, 4, 5 hardworking fathers that are being picked up. And what we believe the reason they're targeting the vans is because the probability of there being someone who's undocumented in that van is pretty high. And so what are they doing? They're doing what they did to the African American community. They're taking away the fathers, the ones that teach them how to work, that teach them, the responsibility, the respect, all these important things that our fathers teach us. They're taking that away from them. And again, I speak on that because I'm experiencing it. Right, I have my nephews and my niece that currently don't have their dad in the picture, and so even having a strong, educated mother, there's still effects that we have seen. And so I think that's a big thing, really digging into history and fighting against that, not falling back into that, because the separation is right now, but then the fruits come later in the years. And they can carry on for generations. But I think connecting with organizations that are active, we Community Response Network, we have a group chat where, as reports come in, we send them out, and there's about 50 people in our rapid response group chat right now, that stretch across from Norman to Edmond, all over Oklahoma City, Midwest City, Yukon, Mustang, where people are able to go to these places. And a lot of the time, the way that ICE works in Oklahoma City that we've seen is they move quick. They're not there to look for anything besides take a human being. So they don't care where or how they leave your vehicle. We've seen them leave lights on. We've seen them leave keys on the hood. We've seen them leave keys in the car, in the car seat with the windows down. So we try to move quick. A lot of the times is we get a report, somebody saw it happen, they send it to us, somebody goes out and they're already gone. So our people will just kind of stick around and watch the car until the family gets there, until we get in contact with the family. I've sat outside of vehicles that had working equipment in the back just to keep an eye on while the family got there. So we need those types of people again, that when they see something, they say something, because we need voices. We need voices everywhere, speaking out about what's going on and how our community is being unfairly treated and targeted by these kidnappers.
Yeah. And I think Dream Action Oklahoma has some trainings coming up that were posted in the Facebook event, and we'll be helping promote those. Definitely check those out on their page as well. And then Community Response Network, there's going to be a rapid response training in Norman on Sunday from 5 to 7 p.m. And we'll be posting that registration link as well. In terms of, we can put up I just feel like there are lots of events happening. I would say definitely following all of the organizations that are here, and just finding where you can plug in, because not everyone is going to be able to do the same thing, but everyone can do something. Thinking about knowing history, I also want to reflect back to the civil rights movement, because I think that in the way that we learn about history in the United States, we learn about the civil rights movement, I feel like, in a way where we're not supposed to emulate it or do stuff like it. So we learn about the big events that would be really hard to organize, like a march on Washington or something like that. But we don't really learn a lot about students organizing trainings in a basement to withhold beatings when they were doing sit-ins, and going on buses together, going to lunch counters together, signing their last wills and testaments before they leave when they're 19 years old. Just the very real, like, nobody is born knowing how to do this. I imagine all of you have had to learn quite a bit as you go, and often do things that you don't know how to do, but you learn how to do. Or you know someone who knows how to do it. Um, so yeah, thinking about like what our like what this safety network could look like. What's something that you would want to see people do individually, and what's something that you would want to see people do like collectively? And we can like take some time like unpacking each of those like a little bit more. Um, if anyone has any like initial thoughts.
I think I have definitely some initial thoughts on how my ESL was about to come through, on how we can collectively do something. I do appreciate like the rapid like response work that we're all doing, but I think it is really important that we start thinking about this long-term strategies and how we're going to get there, spending time in developing other leaders. And I think that's the responsibility that we have as organizers, as people that maybe we didn't know how to do it, but now we do. Now we're going to train other people how to do it, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to change, do systemic changes, right? I do believe that we do have collective power. And as you mentioned in history on the movements in the past, nothing that we have was given to us. That's with DACA, the most recent, immigrant thing that happened to us in a way that it was never like it was still fighting to keep it, but also like the right to vote, like, a lot of things were not given to us. We fought for those. We fought to have access to a lot of the things that we have now. And as they continue to fight to take it back from us, we continue to fight like, no, we fought for this, we're gonna keep this. And I think it's really powerful to see collective power of people organizing their neighbors, organizing their peers, organizing their loved ones. It is powerful. So even if you don't have to tackle the whole Oklahoma City community, but if you talk to one person and you make sure that that one person talk to somebody else, that is already giving people power, right? Because that's giving people the power to also do that. So what we can do is like unite, right? And I think it is our responsibility, for all of us to care about these issues and to do something. This is not the times to stand on the sidelines and watch. This is the time to, what is it that I have? What are the resources that I have access to that can contribute to something, even if it's like, I don't know, like whatever that might be. Like, I know about data, or I know about how to talk to people. That's a really good skill. I always tell people how to talk to people is a really good skill. So whatever it is that you have access to, how can you stay connected? You know, talk to people about information, crucial information. We know misinformation and disinformation spreads so quickly with our communities. So we need to talk to them with factual information. That way we can combat a lot of that nonsense that we see on social media sometimes. And if you have the privilege of being able to vote, stay civically engaged because I know local elections are coming up, and they're just as crucial and as important as presidential elections. So we can start doing small changes in our communities and then work for that longer term and create a real change. And the way that we do that is also through educating people, right? Popular education. A lot of our communities learn how to organize in somebody's living room, in somebody's backyard. Just community organizing doesn't have to come from experts. It's literally community members getting together and knowing what's the issue, and then going on about like how do we change and make these changes. So yeah, this is a call for everyone to tap into the organizations that are doing the work and to stay connected and stay informed, because yeah, information is power, and the power is in within our people, is in within our communities.
I think to go off of what Dulce was saying, they are these three are experts compared to me. I had been around this for a very long time, but not in a capacity that I am now. And so I mess up a lot, and I'm learning a lot as I go. And I've learned from these ladies here on how to organize and how to uh, do some of the work that we're doing. And I think a big thing is that everybody has something to offer. Like, we have people on our team that say, "Hey, I'll print for you guys. I'll print your guys's family plans, power of attorneys. That's what I can contribute." And like, that is such an important
Mhm.
at part of the work that we're doing when we do our legal clinics. We have people that say, "Hey, like, I can't give anything else, but you can use." Somebody offered their church last for our last legal clinic. Like, that's what I can do. And so, even if you can bring pencils, to an event, or offer, like, there are so many roles that it's like a body, right? Like, there's so many functions to the body. So, with one thing, you can't have the other. Today I went to the eye doctor, and he was telling me that the fluid in our ears is what tells our eyes to rotate when we move our head sideways. I'm like, that is, it's crazy. That's wild. And so, yeah, if you have anything to offer, anything, even if, go knocking doors with LULAC, you don't even got to speak, just hand them the packet that they give them, that's it. Like, there's so many things that everybody can do. And so you can find your place in any organization, connect and support in any way that you find that you're able to.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of it is, yeah, like thinking through, like how each person who's watching this, how you are spending your day to day, and like where, first, like where are the parts of your day where you think about this now? Is it like when you are talking to an undocumented coworker, or like you see a neighbor that you maybe like don't know how to talk to because there's a language barrier, but you're still concerned about them? Like, what are the steps it would take, like that it would take for you to like do something for their safety? Would that require reaching out to one of these organizations, or like would reaching out to one of these organizations help you accomplish that? And then like have that in your toolbox, so if you are faced with that situation again, you have that tool to reach for.
Yeah, yeah. I think that my call to action today is, I would like to see more of the community leaders when it comes to elected officials that are not close to a Hispanic community, but Hispanic community are in their districts, right? They are their constituents, and I would love to see them coming to, these organizations or just our community, and then ask, how can we help,
Mm-hmm.
right? How would that look like? Because I see a lot of people that, like I said, they have the platform, they have the followers, they have the resources, they have the voice, they have the name recognition, maybe they have the connections behind the scenes, right? And I would like to see these people working collectively with grassroots organizations and community organizations to
Mm-hmm.
create that long-term power or long-term goal that we want, and that Dulce was saying. It's not only our community, because again, these are elected officials, they have some sort of power, and this is the moment for them to use it. I don't want to hear, "I'm sorry, I just don't know what to do." You can come out to us, you can have the initiative to like send an email to each of these organizations and say, how can we collaborate, or how would that look like in the community?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that, like I said, it is unity among us, but also like this is the moment for them to show up. And I want to see, the Democratic Party more engaged with our community and our struggles. I want to see more of the Democratic Caucus more engaged with our community and our struggles. Again, it's not only share posts, it's not only our press release, but they need to take the initiative to show up for our people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think that that's my call to action today, and I would love to see that in the future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Brenda.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing, everyone. My call to action today, because these lovely humans have already shared about the community overall, right, group, like what you can do, is more on the individual side. Like, as individuals, what can you do in these moments? And, you know, one of the toughest conversations that I have to have with people is when their loved ones are facing removal proceedings. A loved one has recently been detained, and they don't know where to start. Like, that's the immediate right reaction is, I don't know what to do, I don't know where to start, I don't even know how this happened. And so my call to action today is for folks who are directly impacted in whatever way, shape, or form by immigration, whether that's you personally or your relatives, is to create a safety plan, create a response plan, right? I cannot echo this enough, especially as a practitioner. The goal is to get as many people out of detention as possible. The goal is to not have detention facilities, period, right? However, right, we know where we are right now and we know what we need. And so I think that my call to action is for all of you. So hats off to all of you who are hosting legal clinics, to all of you who are hosting guardianship clinics, whatever it is that you're doing. As an individual, you need to have your own safety plan. So what does that look like, right? That means that if you have any identification documents, right, that are issued by or in your home country or here by a consulate, or any kind of immigration documents, right? If you have a current immigration case open, start saving those documents in a safe location. I oftentimes recommend a safety box, right? If you have an A number, or if your loved one has been recently detained and was given an A number, that A number is super important because that's what immigration uses to identify individuals as numbers, right? And so having that number readily accessible is super important. Creating a safety plan for people also looks like, well, now that we understand some of how ICE is operating, right, the way that they're enforcing these policies, I think Fernando shared a little bit earlier, we're starting to see this trend that we hadn't seen in Oklahoma City recently, where ICE is detaining people at gas stations or right before they get on the highway on their way to work, right? And so if we know that that is happening, then we need to create a plan, right? What does that mean? Maybe pump gas or have someone else pump gas for you so that you don't have to make an additional stop on your way to work, right? Or maybe it looks like, who is going to be my first contact, right? If I get detained, I have to have a phone number memorized, right? Who is that going to be? Who do I know will have access to these documents that are super important, that can make the connection, that can make the call to my attorney, that can make the calls that I need to get my case moving along. And it also looks like going to get a consultation with an immigration attorney. Rivas and Associates today, who is the law firm that I work for, and I'm very proud to be here representing Rivas and Associates, is offering a free consultation to anyone who attended this webinar today. So if you need a consultation or if your family needs a consultation, go ahead and sign up. I know we sent the link over to Freedom for Liberating Minds, and I highly encourage you to sign up. Students, I know you have a lot of questions in regards to in-state tuition changes, and you have questions about, right, perhaps how am I going to continue on to my next semester? I encourage you to also do a consultation so that we can explore if there is an opportunity to file for relief for you, even if you are not in immigration court. There is an opportunity for you to explore what type of relief you have available, right? These are all preventative measures. These are the steps that we can take as individuals to be proactively involved. We cannot stop this agenda, right? We cannot stop outright today. All of us in this group say, if we show up all tomorrow, it's going to stop, right? However, we can help prevent it, and we can help create long-term strategies to ultimately stop it, right? And so I think that that's sort of where I want people to be right now, is to look beyond the current political climate, right? To look beyond the next 4 or 5 years, and to think about yourselves, to think about your families, and create a plan right now, right? Everybody at home should know what to do. You should know who your medical practitioners are. You should know what to do in the case that someone is ordered removed. in a very quick way, right? Is there a safe place for them to go to if they are removed? Do they have family that they can contact, right? Who is that going to be? And if there is not, what is an alternative location that you would like to go to? And is that something that you can talk about with an immigration attorney when drafting a removal defense strategy? And so just make sure that that's something you proactively work on. Go to the clinics, take time to download it if you need to from home. The ILRC has a beautiful rapid response self-preparedness package that you can do, and it's in English, it's in Spanish. I don't know if they've advanced so that you can have all kinds of different languages, but I would assume that there are resources out there as well. And so and if not, feel free to reach out and request those. I know the organizers on this call, myself included, have been working to collect as many resources as possible. So also big shout out to the people who are doing the work on their own, like outside of being a part of an organization or an organized group of people. Like I see you, I hear you, and I love you, and you're not alone. Because those GoFundMe's and those quick phone calls at 5 a.m., at 10 p.m., I mean, they're making mountains move. So anyway, that's it.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely, absolutely. So we have some time left, so I'd like to add a question, if that's okay. So I started this series with this idea of reimagining community safety, because a lot of the ways that we think about community safety, or that we're taught to think about community safety, includes police and guns. And I think that what it actually is the people that you would call if your kids are sick, or the people you would call if your dad gets abducted by ICE, or you would call to pump gas for you if you want to take that out of your day. And I also have seen so much isolation. I think this is, there are some reasons, but I would say especially in Oklahoma. I also have spoken with, I was a cashier for 9 years at a health food store, which was a great way to talk to people, talk to lots and lots of people. But I would hear and see isolation of Americans in this and in a way where I would people being born here and just not having a cultural norm to greet someone. And when they encounter someone who does have a cultural norm in the way that they greet people, they are excited to see that and mirror that. But then if they would see another American, that would be weird. They wouldn't greet them in that warm way. So I am thinking about the transition of coming from another country, and then where do you meet people if you don't have kids who are going to school together, if you work in a pretty isolated job, if you don't have access to a car, if you don't have a way to get to a grocery store that has the food that you like to eat, or that you know how to make. How are we building that safety network in our day-to-day? Where do you see that in the work that you're doing? Because you're all working in a very rapid response immediate area. And this kind of community connection is slow day-to-day work. So I'm curious where you're currently seeing it, and where you feel we need more resources to go to build that web to bring people into our community when they move here, but also just it's there are people community fluctuates all the time. People are moving back, people are moving here for the first time, people are having children and then navigating the world in a different way, or transitioning into a job as a lawyer or a job as an organizer, a job as a teacher. And like, you know, I'm trying to think about all of these ways that like we're building these safety connections, and how we can all be like open to those connections in our day to day.
I can share, and then maybe other people can jump in. um, so for funsies, I do other things too. Like this is hard work, but it's important for us to stay alive. So I do have the privilege of teaching dance to students that do Mexican folklorico. I know. It's super fun. It's definitely a way to breathe outside of all the things that are happening, but there's also community in that space. Like I know a lot of the parents come to me with questions. The students are like, Miss Brenda, this just happened. Like, what do you think this means? Alongside a bunch of 6'7", this and that. I don't know. I try to keep up. And so, I think that it's beautiful to when you are there's like a natural, like you're very interested in a specific sport, or maybe it's the gym, or maybe it's, being more social. It's nice to find those spaces in Oklahoma because they exist. I promise, even in our rural communities, that there is at least one other person. And maybe you're that person, maybe you're the person who creates that space, right? But I know that it's important to find our people. But if you're someone who just moved to Oklahoma, and because migration is natural, right? This is something that as humans we do, animals do, butterflies do, right? I think that going to your local library, I know that's a little outdated or whatever. And we find a lot of good resources on other forms of media or whatever. But your local library is going to have a lot of resources, especially during times like now. Maybe you're just looking for a quick answer. Maybe you don't even know where to get started. I would also encourage, if you're tech savvy, to research the organizations that are here today. And they each, I believe, provide in their own way a list of spaces. Like, for example, I know with Dream Action, they share resources on like housing or food, or if you need to, get in contact with maybe a healthcare practitioner who you can trust and rely on, that will be safe for you to go. Or maybe it's just resources in your own language. And as well as the efforts that like LULAC and TRN are leading, right, very grassroots in the communities and sharing resources that way as well. So checking out their websites, their social media pages. Rivas and Associates, I mean, our office in Oklahoma City is on 25th Street. We get lots of foot traffic some days, especially during the festivals on Calle Los Cinco. So feel free to stop by, say hi, ask questions like, where can I go to find this or that in our local neighborhoods? We're community oriented as well. So, but yes, that's what I can share on that.
Thank you.
Brenda, I need you to give a class to adults, a dance class to adults.
I get this request often. I think parents are working on it. I think the group really formed from parents coming together and being like, we want this space for our students, kids. And I was like, okay, I volunteer, I'll show up. But it's coming. It's in the works. The parents want it. My friends want it so bad. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe you guys always do next for fun.
Let us know.
Okay.
Yeah, I can go next if that's okay. I think something that you mentioned, reimagining safety and what that looks like for community, I think is one of my ultimately favorite topics that I can talk about for a while, because when we talk about enforcement and how dependent our community, I know, Nicole, you and I have been in spaces where we like to push back on that. We're like, oh, we don't need cops, we don't feel safe. So that's something that, as impossible that our community sometimes feels like how will we even function without like enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that. We know the history of policing and where it started. It was never intended to keep us safe, and especially people of color, indigenous people, black folks. It was never to keep us safe, right? So for me, I think reimagining safety for our community, it's something that we need to continuously keep working, because that's where we will find a lot of the answers that we need.
Mm-hmm.
We know what we want. We know what we need. We need more education. We need more access to healthcare. We need more housing. So these are not things that we're like, let me reimagine something wild. It's something that literally like things that we need, immediate needs that we have right now, right? And it's gonna take time to get everyone, maybe not everyone, because we know there will be people that will never get on board with that. But I think there is a lot of, even if you're in a different political, that you agree you need housing, you need healthcare, everybody does, right? So I do invite people to continue reimagining what safety looks like for you, for your community.
Mm-hmm.
um, and a lot of times that does not include policing. We can rethink on how we can respond to trauma in a different way, in a way that we still keep humanity, um, in the top of our minds. And how do we do restorative solutions, right, rather than incarceration. And yeah, so yeah, reimagining safety is something that I do continuously. And a lot of time our youth, and our children, they're so quickly to come up with the answer. So definitely, they will be the way to transformation. And safety networks, thank you, Brenda, for like reminding us. Like I also feel like when I migrated here, and something that you mentioned, like looking for ways in which where we can connect. The library was one of the first places that my mom took us to, and it was like my safe my safe place to go to. And even though most of the books were in English, that also pushed me to have to learn the language. But grocery stores, I mean, you can find community in a lot of places. I remember going to the grocery store in the south side and literally spending hours there, because that's where I will see, if you think about Oklahoma in 2003, community was not what it looks like right now. So it was literally my safe space, to go to the grocery store and you see brands that I recognize
Mm-hmm.
in the store and hear my language. It was like a safety. So I feel like safety networks look different. And if you see somebody struggling because they just moved here because they don't know the language, I invite you to also be the avenue to create those safe networks as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I can go. Thank you so much, guys, for all of those things. And something that in my personal experience when I came to Oklahoma City, I'm Colombian, right? So when I saw the Colombian Association, I was like, oh, my people, right? And that's how I actually got connected with the Hispanic community here. And then I saw that they were doing like all of these events. So like, I know Oklahoma City has like the Salvadorian community, the Guatemalan community association, the Colombian, the Hondureños, los mexicanos, los puertorriqueños, los brasileros, todos. So, there is like association for every culture. Like we do have it. So, and when we see all of these Hispanic fests and then Fiesta de las Americas, and we notice all of those groups in place. So they're on Facebook, they're in Instagram, sometimes they're in TikTok. So I think that can be also like a good safe network. It's just like if you feel I get homesick a lot, especially because like all my family live in Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
So last week 2 weeks ago I was sick, and then Adriana, she's from the Colombian Association, she came to my apartment and brought me like this panela, which is like a Colombian thing for tea, and like all of these Colombian stuff for colds. So like like even if you're just like far away from home or your family, maybe like being close to someone from your culture and your like home country, I think that that can also make you feel a little bit more safe. I know that, for example, in the Colombian Association, when they see that someone who's Colombian and then they're struggling with some sort of issue, they'll like come together like, how can we help this person? Let's create a fundraiser for this person. And I have seen other communities, the Guatemalan Association, the Mexicanos in Oklahoma, all of them doing like exactly the same thing. So that I think that can also be like a good safety network that you can like start and just like hopefully they can help you navigate what's your next step. um, but yeah, I think that one of my advices maybe for someone who is new in the country or Oklahoma City is just don't let your maybe fear of maybe you don't know the language really well, or maybe you're afraid that you're not going to understand, or you're afraid that people are going to be racist to you. Like I was in the airport in Oklahoma City, and then there's this lady that she saw me as Hispanic probably, and then she get close to me and she asked me, and she's like, is it true that like people are like shooting people for speaking Spanish or something like that? And I was like, this is the misconception or the beliefs that people are receiving from all of the chaos that we're having here in this country. So I would say don't let that fear to like stop you from going now into community spaces, right? Because again, I feel that isolation is the worst thing we can do right now, is isolating ourselves. And I know it can feel very when I came to the United States, I didn't know English really well. And I was always in Colombia, I was always like speaking up, right? And I became like so shy because I was just afraid that people were gonna judge me because of my accent. They were not gonna understand me. So I understand that fear, but just don't let that stop you from like being in these community spaces and finding your people, because we all are here. There is a huge amount of Latinos who are doing amazing things in Oklahoma City, and they're growing and growing and growing. So just, yeah, just I think that can be like a good way of creating that safety space too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I also, just to speak on like, it there is so much, and also like it is like celebrating our differences and making space for people to celebrate their culture makes more space for all of us to celebrate our culture and for us to be free and be connected and be well. um One of my, or two of my like I took a acting class my freshman year at OU, and because I did competitive acting in high school and was just looking for an outlet. And it was like, I would say like 90% international students who took the class to learn English. And it was such a joy, like having us each, like, because doing improv and acting can be awkward, but like it was so many different cultural contexts like stacking on top of each other, and it was a really sweet cultural exchange. And two of my closest friends from that class were Colombian, and I remember one of my Colombian friends being like, he's like, you don't understand, I'm so funny in Spanish, I'm so funny in, like, wait until I get there in English, like you just have to be ready. And just like, I and thinking about that too, of like when I have traveled and worked to learn, like, there's like I can ask for directions, and then there's like I can tell a joke in another language, or I can like sing a song, or I can dance. Like dance is a wonderful way to connect, that like our bodies understand and know, even if you like don't know the language and stuff. There's a lot of ways to connect. Yeah. I also want to offer, so the Safe Commune program, that is hosting this live, we have a process for harm reduction or conflict resolution. It's called transformative justice. And this is a way of resolving conflict or harm within community rather than involving institutions like Child Protective Services or the police or ICE. And it is a process that was developed by survivors, to keep each other safe. But basically, both the person who does the harm and the person who experiences the harm get people who are there to support them in their process. So the person who did the harm needs to grow to understand like what the harm is that they did, what caused it, and how they can work to be accountable. And the like circle together figures out what the person who was harmed needs to heal. So I also like this is a newer program. We have our second cohort just graduated last week. So woo, we have 2 cohorts. And you know, we're always looking to expand, and we want this program to look like the community that we serve. And so like we want, you know, more and more people and more identities and experiences to be represented in that. And as we're like thinking about these safety networks for the immigrant community, obviously we want to protect people from ICE, but also like, you know, sometimes there's harm inside a community and interpersonal harm that like is maybe too big for 2 people to hold. And there are also resources for that, for us to like work through that together. So you can learn more about that at foundationforliberatingminds.org/safe commune, or just, you know, message us if you have any questions. And let's do a sound off for events because we have quite a few events coming up. So I know the karaoke night, I think, is the next one. So Nicole, you want to do a little shout out for that?
Sure. Yes. Thank you. So, you know, for the people that they don't know, LULAG, we have a scholarship program. We give 5 scholarships every year, and our goal this year is to like raise as much money as we can, because LULAG National is gonna duplicate that money that we raised during the year and give us the double, so we can add this to scholarships for next year, 2026. So that's our goal. Right now, these scholarships come super handy, especially with what's happening with the in-state tuition students. So this karaoke, all of the money that we're collecting on this night is going to be directed sorry, towards the scholarship fund. So about the karaoke night, Alejandro, my dog, he distracted me. It's going to be this Saturday at Sailor at the Dock, and it's a costume contest. So bring your Halloween costume. I already got mine. And it's going to be at Sailor at the Dock at 7:30. Doors open, but you can start getting there around 8. It's gonna be until like 11 p.m. It's 18 and up. There's gonna be drinks served, so 21 and under is gonna have like an X, so they cannot drink. And yeah, just have a good time. We wanted to come up with something that is also joyful for our community. And I personally love karaoke, and I struggle to find places where I can sing in Spanish. So if you want to sing your heart out in Spanish, come on Saturday and join us for karaoke night. And then just one more thing, for the ACLU, we are organizing a vigil. This is going to be for a national initiative with other partners across the country, and this is going to be November 2nd, and this is going to be named Disappear in America. So it's to bring visibility and to highlight all of the cruelty and inhumanity about what is happening in the detention centers and all the people that are disappearing in the United States right now. Where is these people going? Like, what's happening to these people? And also all of the people that are dying in these facilities. So this is going to be November 2nd, and this is with the ACLU. We're also looking for partners. So if you would like to join us for that, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I think next is the Community Response Network training on Sunday, the 19th, from 5 to 7 in Norman. Are there any other things coming up, Fernando, that you want to shout out?
Yeah, well, I want to start out by saying that each one of our orgs that are here, we're all involved in No Kings this Saturday, some way, somehow. So there's that. And then we have a legal clinic November 1st. We'll be pushing out information soon about that. And then we have our first legal clinic in Tulsa we're actually partnering up with Rivas and Asociados. So shout out to you guys, to your team, for allowing us to partner with you guys in Tulsa. So we have that in the works as well, and it's sometime mid-November. I'm not the date person,
Okay.
so we'll also be pushing out information about that.
Awesome. And then Dulce, you have a few trainings coming up with TA, okay?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, we do have our Education Justice series. It's a form of popular education where we bring trainings that are based on what our community needs right now. So we know that we did the showing up for our people actually on Saturday, which was pretty fruitful on learning how to do campaigns work, which is super necessary. But we have the fighting back against the system. So it's going to be a immigration training, understanding how the systems kind of overlap with each other and how like our communities are like double criminalized and how the criminal system and the immigration system play a role with the deportation pipeline that we're experiencing right now. So we do invite you to sign up for that. The series does have a training um, every 2 weeks, 2 3 weeks, but we already have the link there where you can sign up. We also have other spaces where you can practice somatic practices as well, because we know for the long term of the work that we're doing, we also need to take care of our bodies, and those practices are super important for community. um, we are going to be doing some arts and culture partnership with Wild Mother for Dia de los Muertos. So if you want to be part of the volunteers that help out with that, we do have the form here on how you can become a member and also like a volunteer for the organization. It's a beautiful collaboration. Like we're already planning on what it's going to look like, and the messaging that we want to talk about that. And Dia de los Muertos is a very emblematic day for our community and something that we have been celebrated for centuries, right? And how it intersects with indigenous folks as well. So super excited for that. And then we're going to be launching another series or a cohort for deportation defense. So if you go and register in the general membership form, that will allow you to connect with Dylan or members person, and then he'll connect you to us to get more development. I always tell people that you don't have to be an expert on things to be able to provide know your rights information, but you do need some training. So you don't do unauthorized practice of law. The attorney here in the house will agree with me that you also need to take care of yourself and your organization. Or, if you're not a part of an organization, you did need to know what are the fine lines of providing general information versus giving legal advice. So I do provide those trainings for folks. And we're going to be launching a train the trainer. So you already know your rights, but how can you train other people? How can you create those response networks in your communities, in your own church, whatever that means for you? So we're going to be launching a deportation defense cohort, and they're going to be the next leaders of our community, and fighting for folks that are being facing detentions and deportations. So we do have a lot of things coming up. The best way that you can connect with the work that we're doing is through our social medias. I know our digital team is always doing an amazing job providing information and resources for the community. So yeah, that's a little bit of what we're doing.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Brenda, with the free consultation that you mentioned, is there anything else you wanted to push?
I just want to echo everything that has been shared today, and for this space as well. Thank you, Bridget, for hosting us. But big shout out to them. So, if you want to sign up for anything or everything, I know that that's how I got started in my organizing journey. I was like, where do I plug in? What's going on? Who's doing the work? Where do I learn? So, there's lots of opportunities there as well. But yes, those free consultations, y'all, it's specific for this. So we do free consultations for other events as well. But for this, if you attended this, if you want to share the link, like I said, they just have to mention that they were at this event, they watched the live, and we'll get it done. So I'm happy to provide support in any other capacity that you all need me to, and happy to plug in the rest of our team as well. So thank you.
Thank you. And then last thing, I'd like to invite you all to join us on November 11th for our second seasonal Embodying Solidarity Circle. So we did one for the summer. This is going to be ours for the fall. It'll be from 6 to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, November 11th at Culture Hub. And we will be highlighting especially solidarity between veterans and Native peoples. Yeah. Well, thank you all. Have
Thank
a
you.
evening, and we'll talk soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.